we need to move on to solutions, strategies, and initiatives. For this session, it'll be moderated by Mila Popovich, who's the Acting Director General of Directorate for Interculturalism, Government of Montenegro, and her two panelists are Mamut, the co-chair of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network in Romania, and a professor at Ovidius University in Bucharest, and Ralph Wolff, who's the president of the World University Consortium. Over to you, Mila.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here with all of our colleagues and friends, and first and foremost, as is due, to thank very much Arizona State University, Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Lab, along with UNESCO Most Bridges Coalition, and on behalf of the World Academy of Art and Science and myself, to thank our colleagues and leadership of the World University Consortium. And because of that new leadership that exactly Ralph Wolff took over as the president of the World University Consortium, we're looking into the solutions and possible pathways forward in global education and future readiness education, if you will, given the context that we were just listening to. And in collaboration, in parallel with Ralph, we'll be listening to Professor Dr. Eden Mamut. What is fascinating here to see is that Ralph, our friend Ralph, comes from juridical arena, whereas Eden, as we have this custom to call each other by our first name in the spirit of camaraderie, in the service to humanity, Professor Eden is actually coming from nanotechnology and alternative sources of energy. It will be an interesting connection between education for the future based on their insights and how to work from engineering new sources of energy, human-centered. So inner sources of energy would be our focus, how to develop people, the notion of Bildung, if you will, of building of the new worlds, and the also the internal emancipation of people, growing people, and as well as emancipation of society and state in that sense, right along with designing and engineering of new systems of energy sourcing externally as well to sustain our world, which will have to really be transformed as well. So in conjunction, these two perspectives, I would like to actually focus their insights from the compatibility standpoint. And first and foremost, would like to call on Ralph to share with us his insight on solutions and possible pathways going forward based on the context that we heard, diagnosing and root causes. What are some of the solutions that will be able to infuse and saturate the entire social field, open the new pathways, and also how can we possibly take action individually, collectively, and on the basis of our partnerships in terms of also World Academy of Art and Science and our partnering organizations? What is our next step towards those solutions? Thank you, Rolf. Welcome.
Thank you, and delighted to be with everyone here. It's a real privilege to participate in this conversation. I'm going to focus on a slice of the larger context that we've talked about, which is higher education, which is the focus of the World University Consortium. I would say that that many of the root causes that we have been hearing about and been discussing at WAS over the years is absolutely true within the higher education community. There is a rot, if you might say, that it is a system that focuses on developing economic gain, reputation, and global rankings at the expense of what is happening at the world. And so it is both a major part of the problem and we're certainly seeing, at least in this country, in the US, the failure of higher education to respond, or just now starting to respond, to some of the challenges that are being forced on it here. But it needs to be more clear about how to be part of the solution. I actually look to the School of Planetary Health as one model. There are other examples around the world that frame the larger context as part of the educational system. We have to move to a model where students see something, a purpose, going back to what Lawrence was saying earlier, that they have a purpose that is larger than their own economic gain. There is a global issue. Are there going to be jobs for people? And is education or higher education going to prepare them for a world of work that is changing dramatically? And I think that we have to shift from personal gain to how people can participate in creating a world that we need to create. And given that higher education prepares future leaders at all levels, and they prepared all the teachers, that we need to design new models, transformation of higher education in terms of the content. Higher education needs to take a position that this is the context and that solutions are needed, and actually build and reform and transform curriculum and modes of teaching that engage students in being part of the solution. Going back to what Peter said at the outset, we need a model of education that is inclusive, that allows students to be part of their own educational process through problem-based learning and actual engagement in addressing what I would call the doom cycle. There are too many people across the globe who say, what is the point if we're going to end it all? Let me just gain for myself, for my community. We certainly see that in one slice of billionaires building bunkers for the preparation of the apocalypse, that rather than working to prevent, they are welcoming in their own way or creating the conditions. Therefore, I see that we need a transformation of the process that engages students in becoming part of the creation of the new models we're talking about. AI has a tremendous opportunity here. There's a paradox. I'm working with institutions that are developing complete AI curricular models. And on the one hand, we want to build connection, and on the other hand, AI can remove connection away from the educational process. One of the great values of our system of education is the interplay between people with different cultures and nationalities to be able to learn from different perspectives. And we need to see that, as Frank was talking about multilateralism, we need to bring multilateral perspectives into our educational model and move beyond a purely Western frame of culture and values. We need to explore values. And in working with multiple countries, each country has its own approach that we need to learn from, how to address these problems. So I would say that we need to build connection. One of the things that we are working on, particularly with the Black Sea Network, I hope, and with Eden, Mamut, that is to use human security, which the World Academy has worked on for the last several years, as a framework for building a thread to understand every discipline, what its impact on the human culture is, on humanity is, as well as the planet. How do we build a planetary awareness And it's not just going to be a single course. I've worked with institutions that have a course on sustainability. But how do we build a comprehensive curriculum of engagement, builds hope and inspiration, the capacity that the skills that they bring will be able to be used for the future? They have a sense of meaning and purpose, and to help us reimagine the future. So while we need to use AI, we need to use online learning because all education in many respects has become online. In many respects, assignments are done online, not just complete online courses. That we need to retrain the faculty to have this kind of preparation and mindset, and they don't. We need to see a transformation of the educational system, and we need to use AI in a way that individualizes learning, but with a common foundation of there is a purpose beyond themselves, and that they need to be able to have a sense of a shared visioning of what the future might be. And I think that is the term that is being used by some is called a global mindset, but locally interacting to improve their own communities and to address the problems that face them. Finally, I just have to say I've made it as a personal experiment to listen to the different kinds of media that I wouldn't ordinarily listen to, different that might be part of different kinds of echo chambers. And we have to find a way to personalize a planetary mindset with values that are really significant, because that it's not just disinformation and misinformation, but there is a way that some of these issues that in some sense have no relevance to what we're talking about have become larger than life, because somehow there is a connection drawn around this will make your life more fearful, insecure, which is why I say human security to me becomes a new rubric about freedom from fear, freedom from want, and how we can develop systems that put human thinking, human design, and planetary design at the forefront of what we make our education systems about. So I'm looking forward to being part of the conversation, developing actual programs through the World University Consortium, partnering with others, particularly using human security and a new value system as the frame. So I'll leave it at that and turn it over to Eden.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ralph. I would like us all to think now after what you have proposed and the larger picture that you painted. You proposed that it is exactly one of the venues for propelling this kind of agenda, a positive evolving agenda, would be exactly the channel of World University Consortium, that is the venue and the organization that could actually propel some of this new programming through certification, promotion, and other ways. I would like us to think about the ways in which already existing alternatives and alternative modes of education that are emerging all over the world right now. What are the ways in which we could design that collective intelligence, ways in which we can connect those initiatives or provide a platform for them to connect in order to build that alternative infrastructure that in architecture that Lawrence was mentioning through the Buckminster Fuller quote. So let us all think about the ways in which we could propel some of these solutions through our own organizations, efforts, partnerships, our networks, and multiply their effects, as well as to think of the ways we could design connecting that collective intelligence. And moving forward, as we're thinking about that question, Aidan, please, your turn.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mila. Thank you very much, Ralph. Very well
establish the scene, let's say, of putting an emphasis on the need to reconsider the values for the future. But I would like to put an emphasis also on other aspect. We are talking about this collaboration between science, education, and decision makers. And I would like to pinpoint on my experience on three responsibilities that I have. First of all, I am a member of the National Council for Sustainable Development in Romania, and we are under the aegis of the Prime Minister's Office of the government, reporting for all kind of suggestions, support for the implementation of SDGs. To be very honest, it is a huge work. But the Prime Minister of Romania is remembering about his Council on Sustainable Development only when there are very crucial elements, like, for instance, we have to prepare the voluntary report of Romania on the implementation of SDGs or the report for the European Commission. So in that respect, the point of building sophisticated, very comprehensive type of approaches are those aspects that are, let's say, the hidden part of the issue. You have to come up and to be prepared for that very special moment when the Prime Minister requires your input and you have the elaborated solution for that. The second responsibility that I have, I'm a counselor, honorary counsel to the Minister of Energy in Romania. And in this position, you remember on 28th of April, it was the blackout in Spain, Portugal, and part of France. So the position of the Minister of Energy was, what is the cause? So at that moment, the group of counselors, we had to come with a clear explanation, while you know very well the complexity of this issue of blackout and the fact that you require and you need very deep and detailed, let's say, kind of investigation, and the investigations are running on. So when the Minister of Energy requires such, let's say, a quick reply on behalf of the science and technological experts, that has to be done. You have to show exactly and to meet the requirements of such a thing. And the third aspect that I would like to pinpoint is I'm a member in the expert group of the European Agency, European Chemical Agency, and I'm working in the group on industrial nanomaterials. And you know very well that the problem of nanosafety, it's a huge issue. Every year, it is estimated that 400 new type of chemical substances are discovered, synthesized, or produced. So you have to have the proper framework in order to match the security and safety issues for all those things. And for that reason, what we are working at the ECHA, the European Chemical Agency, is a huge effort. But in any case, for instance, a substance that was applied now on a very broad, let's say, scale. Let's give just the example of nanostructured titanium dioxide that you can find it today in every paint. Last autumn, we succeeded to agree all together, the experts and the other agencies, about the procedures to evaluate the safety of this kind of product. So there is a long process that is taking place in this aspect. So for addressing this kind of issues, you need to be prepared. For instance, as a solution in our case in Romania, we developed a model for the entire national economy and to find out how the energy is used in the different sectors and what is the efficiency of using energy in the Romanian economy, but also to find it how this is used in the different regions. So you need to be very, let's say, forward-looking, and in order to identify the risks and the different types of vulnerabilities, just in order to be prepared for the moments that I told you. So the prime minister, in a let's say in a mandate of 3 years, he could, or 4 years, he could ask just once. At that time, you have to be prepared for this, and you have to have all the tools required for that. Or regarding the problem of adaptation to climate change, you know very well that the problem of climate change, it is an issue where there are huge type of studies, strategies, groups that are working there, and so on. But there is one moment when a community is facing a hazard, which can be a terrible flood, or it might be something similar. So in order to address that, we developed, for instance, in a large project with a huge partnership Europe-wide, we developed some new models how we can address these issues, how to identify different types of consequences far beyond that they are happening, to set up different models of identification and working and coping with these problems, to develop different types of digital twins, research vessels, procedures, and all these things, working in order to not harm the very beauties. For instance, these are the images from the Danube Delta, where you have to be very careful. We set up the National Center for Adaptation to Climate Change and a huge national digital twin for bringing together all types of data for addressing different issues of the consequences of the climate change, the data-driven science aspects, different aspects. And you could imagine the volume of the work that you have to do in order to address all these challenges in data-driven, to develop infrastructures for addressing these elements, and later on to come up when you are prepared to go to the citizens, to the communities, and work with them to understand what kind of things you have to be prepared. We also have this kind of clusters, innovation clusters, bringing together the business community together with the universities. Of course, not always the business communities might be interested in participating in this, but we have to attract them into this kind of frameworks just in order to raise the awareness for the problems. And finally, I would like also to address the problem of bridging the divides. So at present, we are in a pace of unprecedented development of different technologies like virtual reality technologies or artificial intelligence technologies. There is a tendency, particularly, let's say, in developed countries, to put a strong pressure and to gain a competitive advantage, and after that, starting to think about what is going on with the others. So here, I give the example of how we consider that we have to move from the beginning. So here, it is a project uptakers that we are implementing, bringing together universities from the European Union, from Rome, from Barcelona and Constanza, together with the universities from Egypt, from Jordan, from Tunisia, in order to bring them together with us and to bridge these divides. So these are some of the solutions that I consider that we could take into consideration and discuss along them in the next part of the meeting. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Eden. I think we are barely now getting to see the configuration of a structure that is emerging, or at least a way of building a structure, which I've personally seen through the work of UNESCO Bridges, for example, where you're seeing what Eden was speaking about, scaled out at the largest possible scale of partnerships around the values-based initiatives. So to continue basically adding or building, as I said, the Bildung forward, I would like to invite Ambassador Excellency Amanda Alice former ambassador of New Zealand at the UN in Geneva and current director of global partnerships at the Julianne Wrigley Global Futures Lab. And since our next session is on solutions in education, this will give us a nice layer in the structure that we would like to see emerge, and then basically propose much larger solutions, global solutions for global social transformation that emerge from different domains of human activity, such as education or policy making and others that we would like to add to the platform. Amanda, please, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mila, for that wonderful segue. Thank you to the World Academy for what has been a very inspiring morning. As Peter noted, we have really reached a decisive moment for humanity. And it was brought home for me yesterday. You can hear I've got a sore throat like Gary going to the doctor. My Uber driver wanted to tell me how important it was for the US to reclaim its country and to get out of the corrupt United Nations without any prompting. So I think that gives us a sense of the broader context. Thank you all for the excellent framing. I want to refer to it not only as turbulence, but also as a polycrisis. At the time the World Academy was founded, the issues of peace and human security were indeed paramount, as was dis and misinformation. But as Eden has so eloquently pointed out, the climate crisis is really something that is new to our era. And as Lawrence pointed out, AI is the other big issue. So for me, these are the current existential framings from a global perspective that we in education are having to address. And I'm very blessed to be focusing on what I think are the breakthroughs, not the breakdowns. I would like to address 3 areas. First of all, how research and thought leadership tools on a global scale can really help solve some of our problems, and using AI for good, for example. Second, how we look at global partnerships and outreach to really advocate for positive change. And thank you, Ambassador O'Donnell, for framing that so well. And third, partnerships for innovation and new solutions. So Ralph, I loved your let us help reimagine the future. So I'm going to do a rapid fire. I think, Vasugi, you were going to put up just a slide to give people an idea of some of the range of different tools that we have. One, for example, is the Allen Coral Atlas. 3 years ago, only 2% of the world's tropical shallow coral reefs were mapped. Now, with support from the Global Airborne Observatory run out of Hawaii, we have 100% coverage, and that is useful on a whole range of fronts. Second of all, Patricia Solis, one of our wonderful colleagues, is working with youth to actually engage them in framing solutions through an initiative called Youth Mappers, which uses OpenAI street maps to map critical infrastructure to really act as a lever to prepare for disasters. Next, we have Solar Spell, the solar-powered educational learning library, to help the some 800 million people who still don't have access to the internet, and to put relevant educational programs on, not only for youth, but also for policymakers. Then Sally, you may have seen in the chat, has pointed out, as did Ambassador O'Donnell, the importance of addressing toxic masculinity and gender discrimination. The Gender Equality and Governance Index is a global collaboration bringing together a range of tools to actually look at the impediments we have. And of course, women have 2/3 of the rights of our global counterparts still in 2025. So much to be done. When we look at how we can partner to create educational programs for policymakers, Parliaments for the Planet, with the 182 member countries of the Interparliamentary Union, springs to mind. The Sustainable Development Goal Academy, with the Commonwealth parliamentarians. And of course, the framework of human security for all has been so useful in bringing together networks of networks. The 10 New Insights in Climate Science, which is produced by the Earth League, co-chaired by the Global Futures Laboratory, helps provide the negotiators at COP with the latest scientific insights in a way that really breaks them down and provides the policy implications. And we often forget in higher education that we can become so siloed and so mired in the complexities that we forget to be able to distill this. So for me, the 10 New Insights in Climate Science is such a useful document. Now, moving on to partnerships for innovation, the New Carbon Economy Consortium, which we co-chair, partners with a range of university networks around the world, including the International University Climate Alliance and the network of networks run out of Cambridge Zero, to really try to crowdsource solutions. And you're all invited the 29th of June to the 1st of July, hosted by the University of Exeter, for which I need to rush in 3 minutes for a meeting on preparation, but we would love to invite you as our guests to participate in that meeting either in person or online to really take these solutions to the next stage. Looking at AI and AI for good, there's been a lot of discussion, and we were blessed to be at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas with a number of colleagues here. ASU is the first university to partner deliberately with OpenAI through ChatGPT EDU. And it's a very different model. It's not just open source, it's open source with guardrails and with an ethics committee. And I think that's one of the key defining questions of our time. How do we ensure that AI, with all its power, is used for good? 2 final examples before I wrap up. Climate Trace, tracking real-time atmospheric climate emissions, is now able to go down to the facility level for emissions. And that we are using to help through the Blue Planet Alliance, starting with islands, the smallest entities. And I loved Francis' exhortation for us to be working with middle powers and smaller countries. And those islands are now able to take that, figure out what is their biggest single source of emissions, how do they shut that down, and then move to a new programming of transition to renewables. And again, you're all invited to join us in Honolulu at the end of May for the 4th session of the Blue Planet Alliance, which is aiming to focus on the energy transition. And of course, that is still the most important single thing that we need to be focusing on in these turbulent times if we are not to continue to transgress these limits. And living in Hawaii with Mauna Loa actually measuring parts per million, we have now surpassed 430 parts per million as of April the 23rd. So we're seeing the warning signals. We have these incredible new tools. And as Peter often says, what is lacking is societal will. And that is where the World Academy and partners come in to help elevate these solutions, continue to build and to co-create these new networks that can take these solutions and turn them into practical action. As Nelson Mandela said, it's always impossible until it's done. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Amanda.
you.
Thank you so much. And I would like to take a couple of minutes to propose another dimension here. We have seen the educational system solutions proposed. We have also seen the larger organizational level and network of networks proposed. I would like to actually address quickly the possibility of engaging social will right along with the political will, with another example from Montenegro, where I currently reside. With multiple identities, just like we've discussed with Ambassador O'Donnell and others, that we've all been truly exposed to planetary existence, some through rough experiences, some through, great honors of serving humanity. But in any case, we are no longer very reductive in our identities. And also because of that, everybody has along the way so far mentioned intercultural connections, the importance of multicultural perspectives that need to be taken into account on one hand, integrated, but also that there has to be an emancipation of all the humanity in terms of intercultural contact that they come into for the benefit rather than for the benefit of humanity, for solution generation and knowledge generation rather than conflict and tensions as we are seeing right now in a very regressive way globally. So I would like to mention that in terms of emancipation of society and state, and in terms of mobilizing social will right along and together with political will, there is an interesting advantage of some small countries right now, because we are not experiencing the turbulence that we are discussing as big as the larger countries are right now, or the global forces are right now, through the clashes that they are experiencing. In other words, smaller countries had a long wave kind of PTSD, if you will, complex PTSD, so that we are not at an immediate effect. We're not experiencing the immediate effect of the so-called empires clashing at this point. Because of that, and because of the increased long-term resilience that we had to develop, and stoicism, if you will, that we had to develop from every historical moment to another, there are possibilities that the small countries can prototype solutions on their state level, but they can also create networks, new networks of collaboration that bypass in the best way that they can the great forces on the global scene, particularly through potential for reinitiating the non-alignment movement. And because of that, Montenegro has been very interestingly geostrategically located. And one of the initiatives that I am leading, and I would like to propose and kind of point towards the greater implications, systemic implications of this initiative, is that Montenegro is the first country in the world. First of all, it is the first ecological state in the world that constitutionally has been founded and established that way in 1991, in unprecedented way, because we had a civil wars at that time here with 3-4 warring sides, kind of unheard of situation. And it has been an interesting country that has received refugees from all sides. All of this is extremely important because it models a way in which you can absorb all the people from all warring sides and providing for them without propelling or perpetuating conflict internally, for peaceful living internally. When you take care of their needs and expose them to a multiculturally sensitive environment, they get to know each other and they get to live together peacefully in a way that they all made contributions to this country to establish it constitutionally as multi-ethnic, multi-conventional, multicultural. So the Montenegro is the first country in the world also that founded the Directorate for Interculturalism, strategically situated at the Ministry of Human and Minority Rights. And last year in December, we have adopted the first national strategy for interculturalism and social cohesion, applying the vision and values of interculturalism to generate, as a result, greater social cohesion, which is the great focalizer and stabilizer in the Western Balkans, as the key area in Europe and at large for peace. So this is extremely important because of the lessons that we have learned at this critical intersection of East and West, North and South. And that is that through that national strategy, Montenegro has also become the very first country in the world to have the culture of interbeing as its public policy. This was accomplished solely through generation, immediately and together, of social will through youth and raising them as social artists for the transformation of their society, and political will at the highest level at the government. Some of the lessons that, and I will number them so that to save us time, that we have learned in this process is that we have to unify scientific and spiritual knowledge in the values of culture of interbeing that is based on, again, the scientific and spiritual knowledge that all beings, all life forms, all phenomena in the world are interconnected and mutually interdependent, with implications for that in culture, media, education, and all levels, institutional levels. Interculturalism is then the way to design new cultural code that has ethical, aesthetic, and ecological implications, meaning to go back to the Stoic basics, to stand for and code everything that is true, good, and beautiful for our way forward. We are strengthening social dialogue. We are for social cohesion. We are calling for science solidarity, which takes the programming of the World Academy a whole step forward from social responsibility that its founders called for towards science solidarity for common good. We are advocating for ecological diplomacy. We are calling for new social contract that will determine the value and price of everything based on universal human rights and responsibilities and universal humanistic values. And we are, of course, calling for connecting the collective intelligence into a truly integrated system for which AI can help us. Finally, the quality of human decision depends on the quality of questions we ask together. For us, and for this proposal, the shared proposal on the culture of interbeing that should be in education and media and culture at all institutions, we understand that there is a direct causal link between the vision and values of interculturalism and human security for all and truly sustainable development. That effort
Thank you, Mila.
definitely led by UNESCO Bridges in the most commendable way.